We are so pleased to be collaborating with the Independent Filmmaker Project and really looking forward to a discussion with a fantastic panel that you will meet shortly. So for now, as folks are coming in, we'd love to hear where you're tuning in from. So if you could let us know in the chat. I'm always surprised to see people tuning in from all over the world at this point. For folks who haven't heard, the SAG-AFTRA Foundation has, since March, developed the COVID-19 Relief Fund. This supports SAG-AFTRA artists with basic needs like rent, food, and healthcare costs during the pandemic and industry shutdown. Donations are 100% tax deductible and directly go to supporting performers in need. So if you have the ability to give, we do appreciate you taking a look at that page on our website, which is SAG-AFTRA.Foundation. Again, SAG-AFTRA.Foundation. For folks that will be watching this later on the YouTube channel, there'll be a description a link in the description. And also I'll put a link in the chat for the folks that are live on the discussion. I also want to let you know that the foundation has an initiative right now called Homestage, which is a digital archive documenting the way SAG-AFTRA performers and artists are feeding their creative spirit during COVID-19. So if you've been home making videos, reciting your favorite monologues, developing original work, singing, dancing, whatever's keeping you going creatively, we'd love to see it. So do record yourself, put yourself on video, or take a photo, and post it to Instagram or Twitter, and use the hashtag Homestage, SAF as in foundation. That's Homestage SAF. And so we can keep those in an archive and see how folks have been navigating this tricky time. So without further ado, I'm going to throw it off to my colleague here, Nevin Kelly-Fair, who's the Membership and Marketing Coordinator with IFP.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see all of you. I'm the Membership and Marketing Coordinator, as Melissa said, at IFP, which stands for the Independent Filmmaker Project. We're the largest nonprofit for independent film, founded in 1979 to sort of create like a marketplace for films. And since then, we've become a place where we provide labs for filmmakers to help develop their films and get them out into the world, as well as providing a space for independent filmmakers to get financing, to meet decision makers, and all around also just find community. We're actually coming up on our big event of the year, which is IFP Week. And with IFP Week, there's a conference where we have a lot of awesome people who are coming in to talk sort of like this in terms of panels. We'll also have places where you can meet experts and stuff. I don't think I can reveal any of the details of like who specifically we have coming yet, but suffice to say that will be coming out very soon. It's a really incredible week coming up. And besides that, we've also been doing a lot of wonderful events during COVID. Just in terms of doing virtual programming, either with screenings or panels. We've had a lot of wonderful guests in to come talk about their films, both new, old, sneak previews and everything. So if you're interested in membership at IFP, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm going to put it in to the chat right after I finish my little spiel. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy the panel today. And with that, I'll pass it over to the panel.
Hello, hello, amazing artists and guests and all the things. Hi, guys. My name is Okima T. Moore. I am a SAG-AFTRA actress, as well as a writer, producer, director, as well as a COVID compliance officer. New thing, right? New title. I am so excited to moderate today's panel. I'm so excited to see so many wonderful faces. There are almost 300 of you in here. That is amazing. So I'm so excited that you get to experience these amazing, incredible artists that have made this great work in the middle of what most people, I tell them I can barely tie my shoes during this quarantine. They are out here making this beautiful work. So clearly you guys need to hear from them and thank and talk to them and all the things. For me, I am, during quarantine, I personally have been working post. Like I said, I'm an actor, but I'm also a producer, and I am one of the producers and the post-production supervisor for Unladylike by PBS and American Masters. So I've been doing that through the whole quarantine. It's what's kept me sort of sane. But I also have dealt with depression. I've dealt with significant loss. I've dealt with all the things. And I've participated in the 7 o'clock clap. I've done all the things, right? So when I watched these films, I was so impacted and so affected by the both of them. I'm single, I have no children, I live alone. So it has been crazy. So if you have not gotten a chance to see these wonderful shorts, make sure that when we are done here, that you run to the internet and go onto Beyonce's interwebs and you watch their work, because it is absolutely great. So without further ado, let me introduce our filmmakers today. We will start with the wonderful, amazing, talented Afro-Latina, Miss Gracie Mercedes. Hi, Gracie.
Hi. Nice.
How are you?
Hey, everybody. I'm great. This is amazing.
I know. I just keep seeing more people.
I know. It's crazy.
And Gracie, can you tell the people just a quick intro of who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Well, I'm an actress and a writer and a filmmaker. I'm originally from New York City, but I've been in LA quite a while now. Most recently, I wrote on an NBC show called Perfect Harmony, which was super fun. And now I'm basically just working on my own projects, writing wise, and living through the COVID life, trying to create and not lose my mind.
Nice. Well, as my granny would say, fish don't try to swim. You put them in the water and they just go. I saw your film. You're not trying to create. You create.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I love that.
Speaking of your wonderful film, we have the talented and handsome Mr. Matthew Law. Matthew, please introduce yourself to the folks.
Hey, everybody. Such an honor to be here. Thank you guys for putting this on. I'm a filmmaker. I'm an actor. I'm actually currently here in ATL right now in the Tyler Perry production bubble. So it's seeing a level of production under quarantine that is unlike, well, maybe hopefully his industry setting in the terms of safety and compliance and all the rest. And so happy to be here.
Nice. You are working on The Oval, right, Matthew?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Please tell my girl Sierra Payton that I miss her and I love her and I'm proud of her.
She right next door.
Yeah. Tell Cece I say hey. And I have some good friends that just came out of the TPS bubble. Devout Ellis and Ebony are very good friends of mine, and they just finished shooting an entire season of Sisters in 2 weeks. No COVID cases after production. So shout out to all of you guys that are making it happen. So congratulations on that. Next we have the beautiful Piali. Is it Siam?
So it's actually Piali Sham.
Sham. I was close. Not at all.
There's no way anyone would ever know that. So it's
fine.
All good.
Tell the people who you are what you do, Piali.
So I'm also an actress and writer, been branching out into directing and co-directing and filmmaking lately. And I don't know, what do I spend my days doing these days? Trying to stay, again, echoing that, trying to stay busy, sane, focused on a lot of projects that I didn't have time for otherwise, and focusing on a short film script that has been in pre-production. So I'm continuing to develop that and continuing dipping toes into the world of internet content, TikTok, etc.
Well, TikTok might not be. We mess around with Inmate 45. TikTok might not be around much longer. See what happens.
Yeah, we'll see.
And last but never least, we have the handsome and talented Shutterbug / actor / filmmaker / Mr. Vic Krishna.
Thank you so much, Okima. Yeah, I'm one of those multi-hyphenates, or wannabe multi-hyphenates. I like to act, write, direct, edit, and photography as well. And it's just been a joy to create content during this time, making the most of it, and helping tell stories of others and connecting with others through our stories. It's been a pleasure in any way, whether it's a TikTok or a short film.
Nice. And you guys made a lovely movie called 7 p.m. Which
you.
It was I have questions. But before I start asking my questions, my first thing is, for Vic and Gracie, tell me what inspired you to make the projects that you made?
Well, Matt and I knew we wanted to make something, and then I wanted it to be a love story. I did think about, ironically, I don't live alone. I live with my husband, but I know a lot of friends who do live alone, and I know COVID's been a challenging time for a lot of them. And so I wanted to make something that kind of told that story. And then Matt was the one who came up with the suicide aspect of it, to take it to another level, that you could be so alone, so depressed that it can get to that point, or you can at least maybe think about getting to that point. And so that's kind of where it started. And then we went from there. We kind of went back and forth with the script. Matt would write and then send it to me, and then I would update, and then we would just go back and forth with it. And then we shot it, and that was it.
Nice. Matt, do you want to add anything to that?
It was such a, I think the creative aspect of us feeling lacking agency in the space of not being able to create anymore. It was very liberating to be like, because I'm such a gearhead at times as far as cinematography is concerned and all these things, and we just were like, why don't we shoot it on our phone? But also so that the story is shaped around that medium, and that these constraints can actually be creatively stimulating and actually add to a payoff. And in 7 p.m. as well, I felt like technology and how we interact with technology, and I don't want to speak for you guys, but it felt like it also added to the story rather than it being in the way.
Nice. So Piali and Vic, tell me about what got you guys to do your project.
Many of us, we're at home watching the news endlessly, just keeping up with what's happening, what's the situation like in the city or in everywhere around the country and the world. And we just felt kind of like helpless. The best thing we could do was, like, they told us to stay home, right? To stay put. Like, that's the best thing we could do. It's a quarantine.
Yeah,
but,
non-essential.
Yeah, but we thought about all the essential workers out there on the battlefront fighting the virus and keeping us safer, helping people get over it. And we wanted to tell their story and their sacrifice.
And Okima, you mentioned this a little before, but we were also really inspired by the daily 7 p.m. applause that was happening for essential workers for the first few months of the pandemic. And not just applause, bells, whistles, all of it. And it was really beautiful. It was such a show of solidarity from the city and support for essential workers. And my dad's a doctor, not in the city, but in upstate New York. So it was just something that we kind of made as a tribute to the sacrifice and courage of all these essential workers and healthcare workers who are sacrificing their safety, their lives.
Their lives, really. I mean, yeah. And for us, so it's just a thank you for all of them.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Literally 3 of my siblings are nurses, RNs. So, and all of them worked the COVID units in various places in the state during that time. So the 7 p.m. clap was a big thing for me. And I just want to shout out 2 SAG members I think she's a SAG member. I'm not sure he is. Roz Coleman and Craig Williams. They literally to this day still do the 7 o'clock every day. They have done it every single day since New York was locked down. Roz is an amazing SAG-AFTRA member and a vet in the game. And literally she does it with a vizvula. It's a really long thing that sounds like an oboe. She has that. She has a tambourine. She has noisemakers. Her husband buys her a new noise thing every couple weeks to do new noises for the glass.
I love it. Yeah.
So I was a big fan. Taking it back to Matt and Gracie. So during this time, for me as a single person, I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll get on the apps and I'll, meet someone or find someone. And but I really loved how you guys really kind of, how it was such a happy accident, right? And true story, I literally met an ex like that. It was a happy, like, it wasn't a
You
video
accidentally
call.
hit them
Wow.
up.
It was because it was before, like, again, I'm older than I look. It was before there was ever video calls to be made. I called the wrong number, and he said I had a nice voice, and we started talking, and we, like, it was the weirdest thing, but it happened. So when I saw that, I was like, that can happen. So tell me about the technology part. We've all probably been like over Zoomed. We've all, like, at this point, everybody's so tired of Zoom calls and all of that. So tell me how you really made tech a part of your project.
It was tricky. I'm not gonna lie. Well, we did this pretty early on. We did this in April, like the second week of April. So this was kind of before everyone was on Zoom all the time. I think now if we would have probably done it, Zoom might have been an easier way to do it, but we shot through our phones. So everything was completely shot on our iPhones, which I know, like Matt had mentioned earlier, kind of killed him a little bit because he's such a great cinematographer and he's such a great, like, he's a camera guy. He's into all that. And I was like, nope, we gotta just use our phones because I don't have any of that equipment at my house. And so we were shooting separately from our separate homes. So everything is shot on our iPhones. But iPhones don't let you record sound when you're on a phone call. And we actually wanted to record our actual phone calls and interact with each other so that that acting part felt genuine. Mm-hmm. So we had to record video, like self-record on our phones, and then record audio separately. And I don't, again, have really like great audio equipment, so I just kind of had this external mic that was connected to my computer while I was on my phone having a conversation / acting with Matt. And then Matt edited it. So I'll let him tell you how that worked.
Yeah, Matt. So you guys used the phone. It wasn't a Zoom thing, which makes things a lot easier. So literally you both were the crew. Like, it was just the two of you. There was no crew. There was no additional cast, no extra cameras, nothing. It was just you in your crib on your phones. So Matt, as the editor of this wonderful situation, how did that work out for you?
I mean, it's like, it was a technical jumble because you ingest the footage and it'll be different frame rates. So sometimes it records at like 29.7, sometimes it's at like 30. Like it's very odd. So the audio gets smudged. Basically, like everything else, it was a trial and error during this time, but it was a nice problem to solve. And I think the technical aspects of this were just kind of underpinned by what Gracie and I really agreed on was the emotional kind of resonance of because I being single, but also I have a lot of friends who are in relationships, and I've lost two friends one friend from overdose, one friend from suicide this year, and
I'm sorry.
And I mean, thank you. But the youngest, 16 was the first time that I had a friend overdose, and that, overdose and sometimes they are very much correlated and linked as far as these situations. But it was something, and I don't mean to spin off the technical into this, but at every turn it seemed like this is a modern syntax for communication. Like even the show Rami had an episode, I was like, oh, that's funny, where they are kind of communicating over FaceTime. And this is how we're able to communicate right now. So I think as far as our visual recognition of what this year or however long we continue to communicate over this, if a romance can be born from such a sterile faces through a device, that it felt very, very much like worth the trial and error to figure out through editing and messing up.
I mean, it would have been easier for us to just record ourselves with our phones without being on an actual phone call, but then we wouldn't have had that like intimacy of like actually connecting, and a lot of that stuff was improvised, and so that really helped.
But it felt so right. Like, as the viewer, for me, especially as somebody who, one, just likes to try my best to turn off all of my filmmaker self and just watch a thing as a human, I was able to do that because it felt so right. But then
kind of docu-style, right?
Yeah, but as a filmmaker, I also was so appreciative of how I was Matt when he was talking to your character, and I was your character when you were talking to his, and it felt so close and so intimate and so in the moment. So whatever the task was, it was definitely from an audience perspective, ethos wise and execution wise, it was worth it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So 7 p.m. So first of all, it was so funny. When I first started watching it, I was like, "Aw." And then when I got to the part where, I'm sorry, if you guys haven't seen these, you're going to miss, it's all the spoilers because that's what this whole thing is about, right? So, I love y'all, but if you didn't do your homework before coming to class, sorry for the spoiler. We are actors. We show up prepared. I'm just teasing, guys. At this point, I just want you to be able to breathe and stay above ground. After you figure that out, I'm so teasing. Somebody said Mufasa died.
Comment section.
I can't. But no, when I saw him then go and replay, I was like, wait a minute. Is this real? Because now the staircase is empty, and like, did she make it, or is he just missing her? Like, what happened? So tell me how technologically you guys shot this.
Technologically, I guess one point before I lose it was to second Gracie and Matthew's point. Like, we all wanted to capture that despite physical distance, the emotional distance was very close. Like, that didn't suffer because of the physical distance. So I wanted to get that in before I lost it. But technically speaking, how did we shoot it, Piali?
So it was interesting because, of course, we're quarantining in our New York City apartment, which doesn't offer a lot of different settings. We are fortunate to have a lot of film equipment since Vic does so much directorial and DP work already. But we really made the most of the space that was available to us. So we pretty much used every room in our apartment. And we actually also used the stairwell in our building to kind of cheat that to look like a hospital stairwell.
It looked very sterile. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Initially, we were going to shoot just in 2 different rooms and make it look like a hotel, but then the stairwell actually worked out pretty well. So it was a mix.
Yeah, and then like Gracie and Matthew's film, we also had a recording, like a Zoom recording, a Zoom call recording. And I think it was less difficult because it was on a laptop. We had a software called OBS that I used, and that was able to record video with sound, and that made it easier for us to, and like them, we improv that section to make it as organic and as real as possible. And it helps that we're an actual couple as well, so we're
I was wondering when I was watching. I was like, I wonder if they're like a real couple. Because, I mean, even you two, Gracie and Matt, like, you guys connected so organically. But it was something about how, and I'll say this for you, Vic, it was something about how the camera caught you looking at her that felt so immediate and real and connected when you were like, I love you. And I was like, he means that.
He's an actor.
I wasn't acting.
Well, luckily for you, you didn't have to act much on that. No, it was beautiful. But what I did love, what was different with 7 p.m. versus with my brain.
COVID-19.
With was that you guys then got shots of her on the computer. Like there was an exterior shot that was able, not an exterior, but there was a full shot that was able to happen where I guess you were shooting her on the computer and then shooting through the computer. So that was the difference that we got with that, like you guys, but for the story, it made so much sense because with COVID-19, like you guys didn't know each other. So like if I would have seen you outside of the frame, it would have felt weird to me, given how you set it up. So for yours, it was perfect because it really did give me the opportunity to see the overall I'm in the apartment missing her, or I'm in the stairwell missing him. So how you chose to frame it for both of you was so perfect for the story. Did you think about that prior to, about the getting shots of like you guys, period, or?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we had the idea of like, how do we show the twist? I think that was key. Like, how do we illustrate that? Because we didn't want to be lost. It was it could go over, like if it wasn't communicated properly, it could be lost in translation in terms of the visuals. So yeah, we did think about having, like, we need to show like the stairwell being empty, me stepping away from the computer and seeing the freeze frame. Those were all like key elements to tell the story.
The moving shots, the gimbal shots, what was on Zoom, what was stationary, what was gimbal. That was all very intentional and edited together carefully, I guess, to try and convey that.
Nice. So for the both of you, for the four of you, a lot of us, you know, this is called creating in COVID-19. You guys were able to keep things as COVID compliant as possible, right? Quarantine together. You two were in your respective places. So what would you say was the downside? Ooh, did I freeze? I think I froze.
Look like you're looking up.
Yeah,
you're looking up at somebody. A bird is flying down at you in the upper left.
Oh no.
Yeah. Wait, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I know what's happening with the video, that's hilarious, but yeah, just 'cause, you know, Murphy's Law, gotta love it.
Yeah.
So I'll just keep talking. You can just look at my weird face. It's fine. So what was there any downside to not, for Matt and Gracie, was there any downside to not being able to be together to do any parts of this?
Yeah, I mean, you don't get, well, framing was a bitch. Luckily, I had my husband, though, he kind of framed me up a little bit for the interview portion of the short film, but then after that I would just kind of kick him out and do it myself. And then everything with Matthew, I just had to, you know, obviously just do it by myself. But I will say it was fun because it was like a challenge. It was like, okay, we can't see each other. This was very early on. Again, this was April. So it was like no one was leaving their house in April. And so Matt was on the west side and on the east side of Los Angeles. And we're like, let's just do this from our homes and make it happen. But we were like one person crews. Then Matt enlisted his mom to shoot her part in it. And then I enlisted my husband to shoot the interview voiceover part. So we had some help, but again, that was with people that either we were quarantining with or doing over video.
Yeah, I think necessity is the mother of invention, right? And so this was an exercise in that, because I would basically set up my phone, and because we had interview portions, but you just sort of do what we do and take given circumstances and play make believe. Except for the ones where we were recording with between each other, and then that brought its own technical challenges. And it is so cool to watch something like 7 p.m., which has a production outside of the digital medium, where like that insert of the pause on the computer, to me, which is actually like interrupting the intimacy which existed in a digital space, and then to step into your reality actually felt very lonely, which I felt was really profound.
Another extra thing we did was that, so Matt had recorded his interview portion. I recorded mine first and I sent it to Matt, and then I saw his interview portion, and then I was like, wait a second, since we're gonna have this like switch of what people are gonna think this is about, I wanted to re-record my beginning section and make my character even more kind of like, I wanna say silly or like light, because Matt's character was so like heavy. And so, you know, if we were in the same room, I would have seen him, or he would have seen me, and would have been
right.
But instead I had to like adjust to his performance because I wanted to, because I thought it was better for the story. But that was just an added thing to do because we were in 2 different locations.
Just figuring it out as we go along, like every day for everyone during COVID. It's such an iterative, improvisational process where just I put one block down and Gracie would, and we just continue until we had a finished film.
I think the landscape, like the current web landscape of media and shorts, are like the shorter it is, the better it can perform, because attention span, and just like when you're starting out, unless you have like an existing base, like a fan base or like followers or whatever you have behind you, it's hard to push for it. So we wanted to make it as short as possible, but still tell a very truthful and beautiful story. And that for us turned out to be in like 3 minutes.
It's constantly an adjustment of, and if anybody's ever done a self-tape where you don't really have any help, you kind of know what that feeling is. So the structure for our film wasn't very technologically complex as far as framing is concerned. But what we were working on was, how do we pull off an authentic, or how do we be sincere with the actual emotional turn of this person who falls in love over FaceTime when they are at the most ultimate point of despair. Technically, you know, that's about it for us. I'm sure for 7 p.m. they had a bit more.
Yeah, ours was, again, because we only shot an iPhone, so it was literally the only equipment I personally had was my iPhone, a tripod, and then an external mic that went into my laptop. So
and I would use a Zoom H4n recorder to record external audio.
Yeah, and so
sync it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like the technical stuff. And so for the interview portion, it was literally just an iPhone on a tripod, and I would sit and frame and shoot just like you do for a self-tape, and go back and check it and then come back. And then for the phone calls, we were literally on an iPhone FaceTime call, and then we did the self-record. You know, there's a self-record function that iPhones have.
And we'd I'd 3, 2, 1 slate us. We'd always clap off, and then I'd hand sync it. It was pointless.
That was the hardest part of trying to clap at the same time. And then the external mic that I had was connected to my computer, which I would just keep, my laptop, which I would just keep close to me. So I was like on the call like this, and my laptop was here recording the audio through an external.
It's like those old films where they have the mic and the flowers in the middle of the table, and everybody's leaning in to get the audio.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
So yeah, it was nice. It was fun.
You know, for once in my life, I'm perfectly satisfied with the edit. I think we put a lot of...
Yeah, because the story came out of the circumstances, and we shot within the circumstances. So it went together in how we made it.
It does feel like that recontextualizing of what takes precedent in creation, right? Like, is it market trends? Is it length? Is it da-da-da? Mm-hmm. But then what took the lead was you saying, okay, wait, no, like the story is queen is king here. Like, that's what's telling us how long it's going to be. That's what's telling us how it's going to be shot.
Right.
And I feel like in such a time of us reconsidering biases and structures and all these different things, I hope that our stories are as well, that we're re-examining how we tell them. And that this doesn't have to stop which I think is the same for you guys, right? You weren't like, oh, I can't tell my stories anymore. The world's come to a halt. And we can find new, exciting ways to express ourselves, even when we're in quarantine.
Yeah, I think both projects, I mean, it was a reflection of our times, and we shot as
it
we
reflected the reality of what we've been living in. I like to think honestly and genuinely for both of our projects. And I agree. I think that, you know, for someone who gets pretty distracted easily, I was totally in, you know, your guys' film, Gracie and Matthew. So I think, I think, I don't think I would change anything.
Final cut, print.
I mean, one more thing I guess to say about length is that it's crazy. I mean, for me at least, it was my first time seeing just how much work goes into just a 3-minute film, and I'm sure for you guys clearly as well. Like it looks simple maybe to someone who doesn't know these things, but really, you know, filmmaking is such a painstaking process already, and then when it's only on 2 people, it's really, you know, comes down to the nitty gritty. But you really have to make sure you're working with someone who you see eye to eye on and, you know, creatively gel with. Which
yeah,
is
I would 100%, 1,000% agree with that. Matt and I, before this project, had worked on 2 other projects together. One as just actors together, and then one we kind of co-produced, and it was like a movement film, so there was no words and it was completely different. But we have very similar sensibilities and taste and humor and all that stuff, so we know we can work together, and we have a similar work ethic and want to both be, we do, I'm not going to say we want to be, we are both writers, creators, filmmakers, we do it all. So so it's great to have someone that you can partner with, and within 2 people you have your actors, your directors, your writers, your editors. It's just
multi-hyphenates.
Yeah, it's really fun and it makes it easier.
Yeah, I think we also, like you guys, just wanted to create a story and share it with people online as much as we could, connect that way. But it was definitely cool to be included in some festivals, and, you know, it's out there. It's a finished product. It would be definitely cool to be in more.
Well, it's funny. I shot my recent short film that I wrote and I'm in and I directed, but I got very lucky and we literally shot like the weekend before everything shut down. And so it is complete and it's off to festivals, but I had to do all of my post with my editor via Zoom, which was a challenge.
I've just been in the streets protesting. Gracie's been there as well. A lot of our friends have been there. And from that, I've been making quite a few. I realized that, you know, justice needs marketing, unfortunately. So, because the images you're competing with is, you know, a constant theater of sort of dopamine button presses for different reasons. But anyways, so a lot of protesting, a lot of coverage of that. And a lot of, I think for this time, it's allowed us to, whether that's impulsively say we want to film something, put it up, or if that's in the incubation phase, and that I know a lot of people are finally getting to say, well, I'm going to get on that timeline of writing the feature or the short or the pilot, you know, that, and so Gracie and another actor started a writers group. And so I'm somebody who wanted to finally get a pilot on the ground. So it's what's so profound to me is a sense of community that continues to expand and be bonded in a time where, as was being said, we're so physically distant, but that doesn't mean that our proximity of fellowship, you know, is diminished. So
you can find out everything about me on my Instagram, which is just my name @GracieMercedes. Gracie's with an S. All the films I've done with Matthew are on my IGTV on my Instagram. So literally everything is there. Oh my God, Alicia Seaton, I do remember you. We did a movie together. Anyway, sorry. I am just focusing on my writing right now. I'm developing a pilot, and I'm in a writer's group, like Matt said, working on a screenplay.
Like how many projects, Gracie?
Shut up, Matthew.
You got a lot.
But yeah, I'm just trying to keep busy with the writing stuff until we can, you know, audition more and act more. So yeah.
You can find on Instagram, I am Matt Law. I haven't been on Instagram since I've been here, and honestly, it's been a blessing. Obviously, it's a privilege to be here doing this, and even when we don't, what is it? You don't want to be in politics. Politics happen to you anyways. But as soon as I get back out, I'll be back on the socials, and you can find everything there.
So mine is just Pialtre. It's Piyaltre. That's on Instagram, and I guess
What's coming up for you?
TikTok. Oh yeah, what's coming up for me? I'm working, I think I mentioned earlier before, I am working on a short film script that I'm very grateful it has placed in a few competitions already. And it was in pre-production prior to COVID. So going to continue working on that, hopefully enter production as soon as it's safe. And I would say that's the main thing I'm working on right now.
You can find me on Instagram at Hot Vic Krishna Actor. It's a long story how I got it. Not that long, but her friend. It's a story.
It was my friend. It wasn't me. That's all.
Shout out to Abigail.
It was a joke.
So you can find me on Instagram, Hot Vic Krishna Actor. You can also find me on TikTok. I'm taking TikTok
By storm.
That's just Hot Vic Krishna, no actor on TikTok. And what's coming up is a couple more TikToks later this week. And I try to say something, like there's a message behind my TikToks. It's not just, I try to do something more with the elevated TikToks, if you will.
You're not just hitting the wall?
No. Got another short film coming up with Piali and myself called Checking Out. That's talking a lot about mental health. So it goes along with Gracie's and Matthew's film. Very, very important topic that a lot of us, especially in this quarantine, a lot of people it's coming to light more about mental health and how important that is to have a discussion about it. And we have one more film that is, again, reflecting on our times with the Black Lives Matter movement and how it's important to show solidarity and to come together as people to make significant change. And it talks about that. And that one's called Whiteout. And that's currently, we're almost done with the draft, and we're going to start to shoot it maybe in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And yeah, just doing a couple of Zoom plays to keep the acting chops in check. And I do like monologue. Yeah, and performing monologues every Monday, Monologue Mondays, I participate in that. Just again, keeping the acting chops in check. And yeah.
Well, I have to say, before we get into our questions, I am so inspired by all four of you. As somebody who is always going, it is really nice to slow down and have conversations with other creatives that are doing things and all the things, right? And I'm so proud of all of you for digging deep and creating something in the midst of a time where for some of us, literally the victory was, I got out of bed. And that's okay. And that's something I want to say to the group, to everybody on the call. We can often get into this spirit of competitive or looking at who's doing what outside of ourselves because that's the business that we're in and how it's kind of structured. But I want to encourage everybody here to remember that it doesn't matter if you have not made anything, you made it, right? You made it. You made it to August. There are 160,000 people in the United States that unfortunately have not. So even if you did not make a tick or a talk or a film or write a script or anything else, creating in the time of COVID is absolutely what this is about. But sometimes the creation that you're creating is just a safe space to say, I ain't doing shit. And that's okay. It's very okay. So no matter what you've made or not made, you have made it to the 8th month of the year. And there are 160,000 Americans have not made it to August. So you are abso-freaking-lutely the real MVPs, all of you. Now, our 4 featured MVPs today, I want to give you a special extra clap for what you have done and how you have inspired this group. I know that we're inspired because there's a crap ton of questions. So can we have you guys come in and field these questions?
Yeah, so I'll jump in with some of the audience questions. There were a lot of questions very specific to craft. And so I'll try to narrow some of those down. I know you may have touched on a few of them. I think definitely you were just talking about writing, and especially if there's somebody new on here who's maybe never created anything before, or maybe they haven't been as inspired. Maybe you can talk to us about your process writing. I know you mentioned there was some improvisation, but just getting the story down and how you did make a story 5 pages long be so compelling.
Right, that beginning, middle, and end is hard in 5 pages. Kudos.
For us, it started as a conversation and just deciding that we wanted to, 1, create something, and then 2, we wanted to be a love story of sorts, and then it kind of built from that. A lot of writing for me, at least, and even my first season in an actual writer's room, made me realize even more so that a lot of writing is just talking and talking things out and discussing and figuring out what works, what doesn't, maybe jotting things down, but before you're actually getting to the writing of the script part, that you're just kind of discussing where you think this might go, what kind of aspects you want it to have, how long you want it to be. So for Matt and I, it was, a lot of just bouncing back and forth, a lot of FaceTime calls, email exchanges, and then like I said, we went back and forth. So like I would get the script, he would get the script, I would get the script, until we got something that we both really liked. And it was fun. We would kind of surprise each other with changes. Like I would get the script and be like, oh, you did that. Okay, great. And then I would send it back and I would change something, and it just kind of worked out.
I love that. I had a former business partner that I worked with, and that literally was how we wrote. We were never in the same room. We were never together. We never preempted our writing. We just passed things back and forth. And we literally wrote 5 plays and 2 screenplays that way.
Wow.
So I love it. I love it. I'm sorry, you were going to say something, Matt.
Oh, just to your point earlier, that I think that this has been, for a lot of actors too, and at least from conversations anecdotally, that when you link your value of who you are intrinsically with your output, as if we're some sort of like the hustle, the grind, the hunger is constantly on, it's cancerous to your emotional state and to your mental health. And so I just want to join with you in applauding us to just like make that space for yourself, because as creatives too, the earth's going to continue to spin. And I feel like if you are living a life to be able to make a nurturing environment for yourself amongst this chaos, instead of falling into some comparison, that what better time with such a great adversity as now, to just give yourself time and space. But and also the yes and mentality, I think, bring into everything. Like even in activism, that's been something. Kenton Chin is in the chat. He's constantly very active in spaces that I would not have previously known about. And instead of me putting up some sort of barrier and saying, no, I'm doing my thing, there is a collaborative sphere that can transcend, even our creative relationships, with us being able to make more profitable communal spaces for each other.
Yeah.
Off of that writing thing, because I saw a bunch of people in the chat had asked about a writer's group, because Matt mentioned the one that me and a friend started. And I think you start it that way. You get at least one other person that wants to work on stuff. And the way our collaborative works is, we put it together by just reaching out to people, mostly actors who we know want to write or are writing. And we said, do you want to do this? We meet once a week for 2 hours. No one's in charge. There's no teacher. It's just, 5 to 8 people bring in work every week, and we read them off because we're actors and we can do that, and we can bring life to this writing. And then we just give our thoughts on it. And then people go home with notes and they bring it back. So just finding your tribe, like that is the most important thing in this creative world. Like finding 1, 2, 3, 10 people that want to do what you're doing and get together and do it.
Yeah, no, I just want to add and piggyback really quickly with the whole tribe opportunity. We have to remember as creatives that what the outside world is only trained to do is consume what we make. And at a time where we are not making, we cannot think because there's not something specific for their consumption that we are worthless.
It's actually funny. I think I still have, the writing process for this was pretty informal. I think we went into it knowing kind of the beginning, middle, and end, or at least we knew the end. So we
knew that's one key moment,
yeah.
And we kind of worked backwards and forward from that moment.
Yeah,
so we knew we need a twist.
Right.
So it's like, how do we get to that twist and what happens after?
So we kind of crafted the story around that. And Gracie, you said this, a lot of it was just building that conversation, which was a mixture of some improv. Sometimes we put in stuff that just came out while we were just, sitting in front of our respective laptops. And part of it is still, we did write a script. It was a very informal script. It's literally, I think, still a Google Doc sitting in my Google Drive titled COVID script. Like it's not, it didn't even have a title going in.
It's not formatted.
Because we knew we were writing for ourselves and shooting ourselves. So, we didn't, go too far with the formalities. But as for the craft, I think finding that way, I think to connect with the reality, to connect with what feels truthful to both characters and what contributes to a meaningful story. And especially with our film, which, you know, does end in a pretty heavy way, it was important for us to also find some lighter moments, some levity, you know, like in the
Right.
jokes, and just to make it a little more of a layered experience for the viewer, so it's not all just, you know, sobbing or anything too heavy.
And if I had that, it was just like, I think we all make something with an idea in mind, a message in mind, or something we want to communicate with an audience. So if you can crystallize that thought, that will be your guiding light as you write.
And, you know, drafts happen. You know, the first draft is usually just getting it out there, and then maybe it's, you know, taking a day, letting it sit, taking some space, thinking about giving another fresh pair of eyes, like, I'm done with it for now, so I'll give it to you to look over. You need a second pair of eyes. So especially if you have a writing partner, a writer's group, that's a really great way to refine your script in a collaborative way.
It sounds like it was very collaborative. Some of the other questions were about technical aspects of, like, direction. So was it very collaborative and you were directing each other? And when you were planning out the shots, is it just something you were doing, you know, did you have those when you went in, or was that also kind of during the process?
We had a loose shot list based off the script. Once we had the script, Matt made an initial shot list, and then I kind of added to, like, so basically we had to figure out what I can shoot in my apartment, what he can shoot in his apartment, and then how we were going to shoot it. So we just kind of plotted that out so that we didn't miss anything. But then when we were on the phone call, a lot of that was just wherever we landed. So I shot all my stuff in one room in my house to make it look almost like a studio apartment. And then Matt, you kind of just shot in your bedroom too, I feel like.
I just shot in my bedroom, yeah.
Yeah, and so we had ideas, and we shot some stuff separately, but then a lot of the film is mostly us on our phones. So,
I mean, Gracie's house is nice, you know, so she had the space to, like, you know, we want to have a sense of time passing, her being bored. Okay, well, let's run a sort of montage effect in frame. So just leave your phone running and you do multiple things. Don't move the phone, and we'll cut that together. There's certain technical issues. If you're like somebody like me who has roommates, you know, like a sink turns on in the distance and you're in the middle of doing like something heavy and you got to stop and then do it again. You know, things like that. But I saw somebody ask about software use too. We edited in Premiere Pro, and shot on our iPhones, used screen recording, and then recorded sound separate. But it definitely was similar to 7 p.m. It sounds like we just came in with an outline of ideas of, like, this is what it looks like, here's the turn, and the general shot composition, but not an actual dedicated shot list.
Somebody asked about editing and recording sound. We had addressed this earlier. Sorry if you missed it. They all recorded on their phones, and then they did the sound separately for COVID-19's film 7 p.m. They were a little bit different. They recorded on their phones. I think they did it together.
What else did you record on, Zach?
What was that?
Zach, there was something else in there, right? Zach, what else did you shoot, like the inserts and sort of the...
Oh, Vic, sorry.
Vic, I'm sorry. Zach,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
so Matthew, I also have the Zoom H4n, so we're recorder buddies. We have the same unit for that. So my camera was a Sony A6500. We did have a gimbal shot. It was a Moza Air 2. Editing software was Premiere. I did have a boom mic. It was a Neumann, I think KM, I forget, 185 or something. We had some LED lights, and
I think you mentioned a program that you recorded the Zoom on.
OBS. Yeah, the screen recording software is called OBS.
Which you did on your MacBook, Vic?
MacBook, yeah.
And Matthew, there was a question specifically about matching up the sound and syncing the sound from different frame rates. Did you use something like Handbrake or other software?
Well, in Premiere, you know, when you're ingesting, the odd thing is that when the frame rate's recorded from iPhone, like Gracie's, whether that's from compression or whatever else, it might come in at a slightly different frame rate. So sound can have drift. but I'm just syncing that in by taking her sound files and then taking my sound files from the H4n, like Vic did, and hand syncing. So I'm just kind of syncing by eye at that point. Cause we did, if you guys didn't hear, we tried to do a sort of slating with our hands. It never worked. I think technically these are the things of where you just sort of have to massage things into place. And, you know, it's sitting with a problem for a longer amount of time. And that I don't think that there's going to be something out of the box that sort of just kind of, because as we're all doing, we're just figuring it out as we go day by day.
I think some people had more specific questions about set. And I know you guys addressed this a little bit, but again, just thinking of people that are coming in and have never created anything. Do you have any tips on, you know, I know some people had different environments where they had roommates, or maybe you're in New York and there's sirens, or just your set dressing. Any tips for filmmakers trying to do that?
Well, like Matt mentioned, like I chose a certain room in my house, which happens to be the only room that only has like one window. Like I have a lot of windows in my house, which is not great for shooting when you're trying to avoid, you know, too much light, because I didn't have any external lights. So I had to use all natural lighting. And you never want to be backlit, especially if you're my complexion. So I chose the one room that has just like this one window that doesn't get as much light, so that I could get a little natural light, but also not be backlit. And then as far as like dressing it, I just moved stuff around my house to make the one room look a little more like an apartment. It had like a futon in it, and I just shot in one direction. So you only kind of saw the futon and a little coffee table, and it made it look a little more homey. But it's all trial and error. You know, you like record, you play back. It's all on an iPhone. We're not like wasting film here. So I think it's just like, try it. And if you like it, great. If you don't, try something new.
Yeah, I think, you know, the actor IQ, whether you don't even consider yourself a multi-hyphenate, all of these things lend yourself to your craft, because you're clearly in this because you love storytelling through acting. That also means that you have a certain knowledge of cinematography, of editing, of these other things. And there's a plethora of software out there for you, but even just using light, like find out how to just use your window to make the most flattering image, or what you deem compelling. So this was just working with natural light and trying to shoot before the sun got down, because I don't keep lights at my house anymore.
I was just gonna add one more thing. You could use suggestive elements. Like for us, we didn't shoot in a hospital, but we had a stairwell, but we had a lab coat. So that mixed with the lab coat and with some post coloring, like making it blue, that can suggest a hospital setting. So that's maximizing a stairwell treating it as a hospital. So you can look for little elements you can add to your scene to suggest a larger setting.
And just think outside the box in terms of like what's available to you. Thinking outside the box in terms of what's available to you. Initially, we thought it's just, you know, our apartment. Then we thought we expanded to think our building. And like Vic was saying, you can always, cheat things like coloring in post to, you know, just one room. There's always like different. You can even make one room look like two, depending on angles and set dressing and things and lighting, things like that. So I would say just thinking outside of the box in terms of what's available to you.
There was another question, any editing challenges beyond syncing or sound mixing, or if you had to do this all again, or is there anything that you would do that would make the editing process easier?
I guess dimension and format was one decision of whether, you know, to keep it 16:9, or if we're making something that's vertically oriented. And I imagine Vic, like you're doing TikToks, obviously it's going to be vertical. For us, we knew that there was the real standard definition of an interview, which would be shot like on TV at 16:9. So we would shoot that portion in that way, rotate the phone, and shoot the FaceTime as it would be. And then that's an editing situation of just literally mapping those elements over each other in post.
No, that was actually really good, because again, the change of orientation helps the audience. Like I said, like I felt like I was looking at you and I was her looking at you, and vice versa. So
word. Like, and that's such a thing of time and time and space distinction, which is the same for 7 p.m., where you start to realize at the end, like, oh, like this isn't happening simultaneously. And that coincides with the emotional turn. So, and don't you just love filmmaking sometimes?
Final question, just kind of asking, you know, different platforms, what are you finding? You mentioned a little bit, a few, but if there's any other things you would like to add about getting your content out there.
I think put it on everything. I put this initially on, like I said, my Instagram, on my IGTV. Instagram now has, you know, IGTV, so you can put, I think it's up to 15 minutes, maybe even longer, I'm not even sure. So most short films can be directly on your Instagram page. And then I also put it up on Vimeo, which is actually how SAG-AFTRA found it, which is amazing. So Vimeo, YouTube, share those links on Twitter. You know, just, I think the more people you can get to put it out there, the better.
If you are making something, the producer in me has to pop in.
Yeah,
if you are making something that you are trying to put into major festivals or the larger festivals that is not niche specific, please know where you want to put it first, because what happens is you can put it on the internet and then disqualify yourself from being able to be either in certain festivals or in competition in certain festivals. So just be mindful that putting it everywhere is phenomenal, but it depends on what you're trying to do with it.
Yeah, and
so just want to put the caveat. I just want to put the caveat out there for people.
Yeah, and that's
the producer and me won't let me know.
I absolutely appreciate that, because that's so true. And I think in my head, this project was different than, let's say, the short film that I just did. That was like a $12,000 budget short film. Like, I think it depends what you're doing and what you're making, because if you're trying to make like a film festival film that you really want to, like she said, like get out there, don't put it on don't put it on social media or any of that stuff, because a lot of times that will disqualify you. But if it's something like this that we just set out to make something and it's a short little thing and you want to get it out there, that could also get you into other film festivals that don't have that caveat or that restriction.
Right. And somebody, just really quickly, somebody said, well, if you if you can't put it out there, what are some other ways to promote? Remember that I'm very fond of the Hansel and Gretel idea. I will breadcrumb my stuff until you get to have the whole meal. So if I can't put it on social as a full film, I'm putting out, you know, the trailer, and then I'm also putting out outtakes, and I'm also putting out maybe interviews. So remember that when you're creating, even if you can't put your actual work on the internet because of whatever festival restrictions that happen, you can always breadcrumb the stuff. That's why it's very important to get like BTS if you can, or just find ways to utilize bits and pieces that don't tell your whole story, but that do entice. So I hope that answered the promotion question.
Great, thank you. Well, I mean, again, thank you all for a wonderful panel, very informative and very inspiring, and we're so grateful for your time today. And for everybody watching, everybody participating, we wish you well and hope to see you at the next one. So take care, everyone.